Are you working hard and not seeing results? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You might be exercising, but you're not actually training. Today, I'm going to show you the difference, and it's going to change everything about how you approach paddling. I've spent 20 years training champions and transforming recreational paddlers into competitors. The system that I'm about to share is what separates those who plateau from those who keep improving. Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's called Stop Exercising and Start Training. Okay, so my mission is to help develop community-focused paddlers and leaders. I want to provide mindset, technique, and coaching talks to support you with your goals, as well as hopefully your goals for your team. How often are you exercising right now? And I use this term exercising because it's pretty much you getting your activity in there, your workout in there. Are you able to do on water dragon boat right now? How often are you doing that? Are you going on water on the outrigger? Are you able to do that? Maybe you're doing the paddle erg inside. I guess then also the rowing erg. I guess, and some places might also have a paddle pool as well. Those are all ways to exercise. Maybe you're also going to the gym. Maybe you have a powerlifting program, or you have a hypertrophy program, or you're just going to the gym to stay active and stay fit. Some of you might be running outside, running on the treadmill, running on trails, biking, swimming, and maybe even other activities. And I asked this question, how often are you exercising right now? So in a week, I usually use a week as the gauge. In a week's time, how many times are you doing an activity for a duration of over 45 minutes? And that's kind of how I count how many workouts or how many exercise, how many training sessions you have per week. And I think many of you may be making some of these mistakes. One of them might be not having a plan for your training. Some of you might also be exercising just to stay busy. And some of you might be thinking, well, at least if I'm doing something, it's better than not doing anything. If you are doing no training at all, no exercising at all, then I think getting you to pencil in some time to do the workout, do some workout will be better than nothing. But then oftentimes, I think many of you are already training often. You have a goal that's set, but you want to get faster, get stronger. Then I think in those times, it will be important that you start thinking about a better plan so that it's more than just doing something, that it's something geared towards a goal. Okay. And then another mistake might be that you are working too hard all the time. It could give you the opposite result where you burn out, you get too fatigued, or you can't push on the push days, or when it comes race time, you're just too tired. Today, I'm going to talk about periodization and kind of how I recommend you do it for yourself or for your team. This is what I use for my training and for people who have training programs with me. I kind of follow this periodization. Periodization essentially just means a training method that divides a training plan into phases to improve performance. And so you can see here, there's a macro cycle here. The macro cycle in the grand scheme of things is like 12 months. It's the whole year of what your goal is. You backwards plan 12 months ahead of time. Then there's a mesocycle, which is kind of like your quarterly, right? So here it's 4 quarters in the year. And then there's a microcycle, which is then a smaller block within those cycles to kind of gear you up to peak at the very end here. So again, each of us might be on a different journey. Maybe you're just starting to work out enough where you're like, man, I'm starting to plateau, but I don't quite know how to break through it. You're probably at a place where you need to spread it out and be more patient, where the gains are no longer coming every month or every week. Even when you're first starting out and new, it comes very, very fast. But then over time, as you get training in, it takes longer for you to get those results. Okay. So why is programming important? Number one, it offers clarity as to what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. On this side, I have an image of my gym, what I went to the gym to do, right? I wrote down and this is important that I wrote it down before I went to the gym so that when I went there, I knew exactly where I had to go, right? I'm not looking at the gym and looking at the equipment and being like, what should I do today? right? It's already written out. I'm going to get that done. You have your game plan written out, and I like to write it out for at least 4 weeks minimum so that you're building on top of it to get to your goal. Okay. It also allows you, the programming allows you to analyze your data so that you can see growth over time. You can see your progress over a certain number of weeks. And I like to put out 4 weeks because 4 weeks is probably the minimum that you need to see some sort of gain. And again, if you've been a pretty trained athlete, 4 weeks might not get you the gains. You might be looking at more like 3 times the length or 6 times the length. Okay. You might be looking at 6 months. Also note that speed increases or on the water, on the purge or whatnot, it's not always linear, but the hope is that over time it'll trend positive. To me, programming is also important because it is a much more efficient usage of your time. For example, like with my gym programming here, when I get in the gym, I know exactly where to go. I'm not dilly-dallying trying to figure out, oh, what should I do today? And it's the same thing here with the workout. You put your boat on the water, you already know what you're going to be doing for your workout. It takes the thinking out of it so that you go ahead, you get the workout done, and then you can head home. And then, so when we get busy and we start thinking about how many workouts can we put in a week, this plan allows you to be much more efficient with that use of time. So it's kind of like shopping without a grocery list versus with a grocery list. One is more efficient than the other, or it's like going to the gym without a workout plan or with a workout plan. One is more efficient. I'm going to go over kind of what I do for my team. When I program the workouts for my athletes as well as my team, I usually use a 4 week training cycle. So if you go back and you look at this macro cycle, I'm really looking at these little micro cycles right here. This is like a 4 week block. Okay. Somewhere around here, that's like a 4 week block. Okay. So I'm looking at that. And in those 4 weeks, I go through week 1, I do an endurance block. Week 2, I do another endurance block. Week 3, I put in explosive sprints. Week 4, I do mid distance. And I'll cover in detail a little bit more what each of those will do. And the goal here is that I'm able to track progress at the end of each of those 4 weeks. There are some differences between dragon boat paddling and outrigger paddling, and I'll cover that as well. Each of these workouts, I usually have between 60 to 90 minutes. So if you're training it for yourself or for a dragon boat team, if you're a coach here, I like to plan the workouts for at least 60 minutes to 90 minutes. The week 1 endurance, I actually like to include some resistance work. In the beginning of a season, I might just keep it as no resistance work. It's just building the base. And building the base just means lots of water time at around 70 to 80%. I also write down that for the rowing erg, I like to put, if I were to add resistance, the rowing erg, I like to put at damper 8. And for the paddle erg, I like to put at damper 5, just because of rowing mechanics versus paddling mechanics. I like to have the endurance piece at between 70 to 80% of max heart rate. The endurance should not be so easy that there's no stimulus, there's no gain. So I put a note in there that no more 4-hour purges, which I did in the past often, where I'm going at like 50 to 60% max heart rate for 4 hours. At that point, it's almost just like walking. It's not going to give you the stimulus to build your endurance. And so if I had time, I could do it, but is it the most efficient use of my time? I would argue not. On the dragon boat, this would look like somewhere between a variation of 8 minutes to 15-minute pieces, 4 to 5 of them. And on the outrigger, since that's more distance based, I would put down 10 to 25-minute pieces, 2 to 3 of them. The second week of endurance, I would take out the resistance. And so row erg, I would put down to damper 3, which is more like water feel for the rowing motion. And then on the paddle erg, I actually put it down to damper 1 to test, mainly because when you are on the dragon boat, this water speed is so much faster and the recovery is so much quicker that the window is very small for you to impact. And so I found that by putting it down to damper 1, you actually train the lungs a bit more to the dragon boat motion. It's important that the heart rate is still between 70 to 80%. And again, important that you don't go so easy that there's no stimulus. On to week 3, pretty much you want to be doing sprints, right? So this is me going as hard as I can, right? And you want to go between 90 to 100% of your max heart rate here. For those of us who do dragon boat, right? This is the nature of our sport. And it's also important to have in outrigger as well, because when you're doing distance races, you might have those times where you're neck to neck with someone and you want to push past them. This is where those explosive sprints would come into play. Note that for explosive sprints, it's important to have 10 plus minutes of warming up at the 80 to 85% level. You don't want to jump right from a 60% warm up straight into a max heart rate piece. The younger guys, I used to do that, but it's not as effective because your body just isn't as warm. It's important that you go as hard as you can given that moment for those explosive sprints. It's important also to not slap water. Oftentimes when we try to go harder, we just kind of rate up, and you just slap the water, but you're not actually engaging and being deep in the water. Focus on bringing more power from the core engagement and pushing deeper through the water to allow your rate to then come up. Just focus on power over the rate first, okay? Let the power bring the rate up and not the other way around. Have a start sequence at some of these pieces so that you're able to train it like it's routine. On the dragon boat, I use a 6-5-5-5 settle. So 6 steady strokes, 5 up, 5 up, 5 up, aggressive, and then into a settle. On the outrigger, I like to do 3 steady strokes, 3 strong deep strokes, and then 10 upstrokes into settle. So on the dragon boat, it might look like 30-second pieces to 60-minute pieces, 10 to 20 times. And on the outrigger, it's actually the same because again, we're just working on the 30 to 60 second kind of mark. Okay. And then week 4, I have it as mid distance. And this is usually where I put my test week. All right. So as you can see here, this is my 500-meter test in 2020. And so, yeah, the 500-meter is a distance for dragon boat that I test on the paddle erg. During the mid distance, the heart rate zone should be somewhere between 80 to 90. So it's it's like right below race pace. So you're working pretty hard, but doesn't have to be all out, except when you test. It's important to have 10 plus minutes of warm up at 70%. And it's important to go hard, but not so hard as the explosive sprint week. On the dragon boat, it'll look more like 500-meter pieces like this, or somewhere between 2 to 4 minute pieces and 4 to 8 of them. On the outrigger, the test for mid distance that I use is a 1 mile piece or an 8 to 10 minute piece, 2 to 4 of them. And so usually I look for the first one to be as strong as you can, and then the subsequent ones to be still pretty hard, but usually it's your first one that is the test metric to see whether we are making progress from month to month. Here are some common difficulties of when you kind of have these cycles. Sometimes you want results faster than 4 weeks. Another challenge or difficulty is that sometimes people work too hard during the endurance weeks. So again, with the endurance week, that's not going all out. That's not the mid-distance test. You're going at around 70 to 80%. And I don't like under 70% because I feel like that's too low of stimulus. 80% is usually the sweet spot where you're able to still get benefits from those endurance weeks. And then the other common difficulty is that you might not be working hard enough on those sprint weeks, right? So making sure, like if you work too hard on the endurance weeks, then you might not have the juice to then work hard on the sprint week. So it's important that you kind of keep those separate so that you're able to function and achieve what each of those weeks are defining. And sometimes life things will get in the way of training plans, right? So you might get sick, you might have something else happen, and then workouts get shifted. All of those things will require just looking back at the training plan and then readjusting as needed. Here's some final tips. I want you to be flexible. Okay, so with your scheduling, be flexible with your workout, but not to the point where you always excuse yourself. So if you start finding out, okay, I just excuse myself from 2 weeks of working out and somehow is explaining it away, then it might be time to get a real talk from me to be like, no, you got to get back. Let's see where we can schedule in some time. Also ask yourself how you currently decided what you do to train. So kind of taking a look at your current training plan, what made you decide to do that, and then looking to see if it kind of fits into this programming. And also give yourself 3 to 6 months to make progress. It's not going to come 1 month later. It's not going to come 2 months later, always.
But give yourself time and stay consistent with it. Yeah, and be patient and that it doesn't happen overnight. I want to tell you guys about the paddling school community that I run online. If you join today, it'll be 7 day free trial that you can try out right away. You can win prizes each month. You can get weekly workouts for yourself or for your team to do if you're a coach. And you can get access to courses about paddling. It's all on there. You can meet paddlers from around the world and share stories. So feel free to click on that link. You can ask me for it afterwards. Go check it out. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to this Tech Talk. If that was valuable to you, please drop a comment, drop a like, or share it to a friend that you think will benefit from this. Thank you so much for tuning in.